Get ready to find your recipe for a successful real estate lifestyle from America's top expert here at Greenlight REI with your host, Lance Edwards.
Well, welcome everyone to this session of Greenlight REI. This is where you learn the recipe for the successful real estate lifestyle. And we have a guest you're really going to appreciate today. Matter of fact, he's a remarkable man who's created a very, very successful real estate business on his own. And I got to share with you, I know about this because wasn't too long ago, a few short years ago, I actually toured his operations. And out of that tour, he gave me one tip that allowed me to grow my business sevenfold. In fact, since then, we've been recognized by Inc. magazine 3 years in a row as one of the fastest growing companies in the nation. And so there's a lot to learn from this gentleman, and his name is Mr. Larry Goins. Welcome, Larry.
What's going on, buddy? How you been?
I am great. Thanks to your one tip, we are doing very, very well.
I'm excited for you. I really am. Listen, man, I know you were already a huge success before you came to the office, but I really am glad that I could be a part of helping you.
No, it was super. And if I could real quick, let me give everyone kind of, Larry, your background so they know the breadth of things that you're doing in real estate. And first of all, Larry's been investing in real estate for over 30 years. You can't tell by looking at the man, but he's doing it for over 30 years. He has served as the past president of the Metrolina Real Estate Investor Association down in Charlotte, which I've spoken at. It's a great organization, over 350 members, at least when I was there. I'm sure it's probably more now. He's also host of the Bragg radio network, which means Be Rich and Generous. So you want to be checking that out. And he's also has his own podcast, Brain Pick a Pro. So you want to check out Larry's Brain Pick a Pro. In addition to all that, he's a very, very active real estate investor, does multiple deals per month. He travels the U.S. speaking. And of course, he has this very successful business that I was able to tour. And if we speak today, it's about real estate. So, Larry, I want to kind of get going here. And one of the things I want to talk about today, which I know you have many, many levels of expertise, is the topic of seller financing,
right,
which is getting these deals done without banks. So let me just start off here. For people that may be new, let's just lay a foundation here. What is seller financing? When I say that, what does that mean to you?
Well, there's two different types of seller financing. There's seller financing that you get when you buy a property, right? I could get the seller to finance it for me. In fact, we do a few of those deals every once in a while. We spend a lot of money on marketing, making the phone ring 200 or 300 times a week and buying a lot of properties. And so there's seller financing where if you can't come to the right price with the seller, then what I try to do is offer to give them their price, but my terms, right? So there's seller financing where you get the seller to finance the property for you. And I try to do it with no money down, right? 5% interest, no payment penalty, no recourse, and fully assumable, right? So that's one kind of seller financing. But what we really focus on, and I'm sure really what you're kind of talking about, is when we sell a property with seller financing, right? It gives you the best of both worlds. You're able to create cash flow without taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance, or any of that stuff, right? And you don't have to deal with tenants, trash, termites, and toilets, right? So you're able to generate the cash flow without the management headaches of being a landlord, right? So I'll give you a quick typical example. And I have a model that I call filthy riches, right? It's buying dirt cheap houses nobody else wants, and then you sell them for 3 to 6 times what you paid for it with owner financing, and you get a reasonable down payment, and then you set up the payments to fit their budget. A really real typical deal, Lance, that we might do is we might pay 10 grand for a house and then turn around and sell it for $29,900 or $39,900. We're going to get $2,000 or $3,000 down, and then we're going to collect $400 or $500 a month for the next 10 or 15 years, right? And now we've got a cash flow, and we're getting huge returns on our deals. We've gotten anywhere from 141% returns up to 788% returns, and sometimes they're infinite returns. We've actually had somebody put down a down payment which covered our all-in cost. And now your yield is infinite, right? So that's kind of what that's all about.
That's fantastic. And a lot of people don't even where you can do that. So let's talk about this. I understand the advantages of selling it to someone on seller financing. So how do you find the buyers for somebody who's to buy a property on seller finance? Seem to be they'd be lining up for that.
Oh my gosh, that's the easiest part. I mean, think about it. You run an ad that says owner financing, why rent when you can own, payments less than rent, looking for a deserving family with a reasonable down payment that wants to become a homeowner and is tired of throwing their money away on rent. Your phone rings off the hook, right? Even when we're wholesaling properties and selling properties for cash, you always get calls from people that say, will you lease option it or will you sell or finance it for me, right? There's a lot more people looking for owner financing than there are cash buyers looking to do deals.
Yeah, certainly. All right, so you mentioned a moment ago about buying these properties on the cheap. So how, and all the marketing you're doing, what can you share with us with regards to how you're finding the properties that you're buying, Larry? I know you're doing many, many deals.
Yes. Well, I wrote a book called HUD Homes Half Off, How to Buy HUD Houses for Pennies on the Dollar. It's available wherever books are sold. And but we're going to give one away, I believe, at the end of this podcast, or give it away to people. But I do HUD, I do MLS, I do direct mail, bandit signs, our website, and Facebook marketing. I'm a firm believer, Lance, and I know you'll agree with this. I'd rather have 10 ways to find one property than only one way to have to find 10.
I agree. Absolutely. Now, are you doing this just in your own local market, or are you doing this outside your local market, Larry?
Well, that's a really, really good point. I've done deals in 12 different states, but I focus on the Carolinas. And when I'm doing my own actual marketing, when I'm making the phone ring, I market in 7 different counties right around me. Now, this is very important, guys. Listen up. I'm in the Charlotte MSA, Charlotte, North Carolina metropolitan statistical area, right? It's been almost 5 years since I bought a house in Charlotte. I go to the outskirts outside of the MSA where there's small towns. You've got people that were born and raised there. It's not transient. They've got friends and family. They've got roots and ties to the community. And those are the great, great places to do deals. Plus, there's not a lot of competition. When I would do direct mail in Charlotte, I would get people that would call and say, yeah, I got 5 other postcards this week, right? But when I mail 2 or 3 counties out from the big MSA, people have never even heard of, what's this postcard about? What does this mean? What do you want? What are you trying to do here? I don't want to sell my house, or, wow, I've never seen anybody send me a postcard before. Right. So I love that. Number one, you don't have to worry about the competition. And number 2, you can get much, much better deals when there's no competition.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's like, well, what a novel notion. You're actually going fishing where not everybody's fishing already. Is that right, Larry?
I love it. And you know what, Lance? I do all my deals over the phone. I buy them over the phone. It takes me about 15 to 20 minutes to buy a house over the phone.
Do you actually see it? Do you actually go look at it?
You know what? Very rarely I will go see it. I did go to one last night just to get the paperwork done because the guy was really itchy and it was about 10 minutes from our office. So I did personally go. We're buying a house from his grandmother, right? We're buying a house from his grandmother. And the value on that house is $100. In fact, there's a house right next door for sale for $139,900. Right next door, it's listed for $139,900. We're paying $47,500 for this house right next door. And yeah, it needs paint and carpet and kitchen and a bath, right? But it's going to be worth $130,000 or $40,000, right? And the house I went to last night, the guy, it's her grandson. He's behind on his mortgage and he's behind on his HOA. And there are 4 other houses in the neighborhood that are on the market, and all of them are pending. All of them are listed over $200,000, like 202, 2099, 215.9. I'm buying his for $100,000 even. and it just needs paint and carpet. That's all. It needs paint and carpet, and that's it, right? But now I also buy a lot of cheap houses too. Just last month, Lance, I bought 2 houses for $9,000. One of them had 4 acres of land with it. I could not believe it.
Oh my gosh.
Steal. This was a steal. So we're buying a lot of properties. We buy a lot of cheap rental properties too. I know you buy a lot of multifamily properties. Hey, you know, I got your stuff too, right? You know, so, but yeah, I know you buy a lot of small multifamily stuff, you know, that are like 2 to 30 units, but we get a lot of those little rental properties too, and we'll seller finance them or wholesale them or whatever.
All right, so let me take one of the ones you just talked. Let's take the one that you're buying for $100 and you think it'll over $200,000 value. What do you think your exit strategy is going to be on that one? Are you going to wholesale it, or are you going to sell that one on seller financing?
Well, you know what? It's funny you say that because I hate rehabs. Right? I hate them. I don't like dealing with contractors. I don't like dealing with the material. Something always comes up. The only deals I really typically have ever lost money on have been rehabs, right? But I was at this house last night and I'm like, man, I pulled up the comps before I went over there and I'm like, man, there's houses around, very similar houses, and anything under 200 in this area is selling like that. So I get over there and he had already told me he would take 110, and I got him to 100 on it, but he owes 80. So he's going to walk away with a little bit. He's got a couple little back things he's got to take care of. But I knew $100,000, man, this house needs paint and carpet and one sliding glass door that the seal's broken. It's foggy inside. It needs paint and carpet and one sliding glass door, which is about $600, and that's it. I'm like, I'm going to retail this house, right? I'm going to paint, carpet, I'm going to put 20 grand in it, and I'm going to retail it for $199.9, right?
Oh, so you're going to retail, you're going to get out of it. Okay. So what type of property would you do on a seller finance? What are the parameters of a property that would lead you to want to sell it on seller financing?
Man, that's a great question. I love the cheap houses for seller financing. Like the couple I talked about, the $100,000 house or the $47,500. I don't owner finance those. My model for owner financing, Lance, is I got to be able to sell it with owner financing with payments comparable to rent for around 3 to 6 times what I paid for it, right? So if I buy it for 20, I'm going to sell it for 60 to 90,000. If I buy it for 10, I'm going to sell it for 30 to 60,000, right? I want to sell it for 3 to 6 times what I paid for it with owner financing. That way I can get $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, sometimes $10,000 down, and I owner finance it, and their payments are very comparable to rent by the time they add in taxes and insurance into their monthly payment. And I'll escrow for that too. They pay taxes, insurance, repair. They pay principal, interest, taxes, and insurance in their payment, right? I escrow for all that, and I have a third-party servicer that services that, so I don't even have to get involved in it.
No, that's even more beautiful. So, all right. So these cheap houses. So you're buying them, and I think what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're selling them as is on seller financing. You're not putting anything into them.
That is correct. Really, really good question. Here's one of the keys. The house has to be livable or close to livable, right? Livable or close to livable. It can't. For example, you can't sell a house with owner financing to somebody that's going to move in it if it needs a roof, if the HVAC went out, or if the kitchen's ripped out of it, or whatever, right? Those are major expenses, right? You can't sell or finance a house to somebody like that. But you can sell or finance a house all day long that needs paint, carpet, updates, needs a water heater. That's $300 or $400. You know, all the small stuff. But if it's got wiring problems or plumbing problems, you know, unless they're small, you can't sell or finance a house, right? You've got to give them a house that's livable or close to livable. Something a handyman can move in, He can take his wife over there and say, honey, I can do this. I can fix this. I can put down new floor covering. I can paint the cabinets. I can paint the walls. I can do this. You know, my buddies can come over. They can help us. We could get this thing looking good. We only have to put $3,000 down, and our payments are going to be comparable to rent, right? So that's what we do, and that's very, very important. You can't sell a house to somebody with owner financing that's going to live in it if it needs major repairs.
All right. So if it does need major repairs, then is your primary exit strategy there to wholesale those to a rehabber? Is that what you're doing, Larry?
Absolutely, absolutely. And because I target and get a lot of cheap houses, yeah, I just bought one for $100,000 last night, or got it under contract last night, and bought this other one for $47,500. That's the most I've paid for houses in months and months and months. I mean, Lance, I got to tell you, man, last month we bought 6 houses for $35,000, not each, $35,000 total, right? And check this out. They were all rented for $350 a month each, $350 a month each, right? So it's bringing in cash flow already. All we did was wholesale those to an investor for $50,000. We made a quick 15 and moved on.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now let's go back to the one you did last night under contract for $100,000. Now some people might be listening right now saying, well, that's Larry. Larry can buy a property $100,000. I don't have $100,000. So how do you address the people that are saying right now, well, I don't have $100,000, and they want to go out and buy a $100,000 property and do what you're doing?
That's a great question. Well, if you don't have $100,000 and you want to retail it, then you got to have a private money or a hard money lender, or a cash partner or a credit partner, right? You've got to have somebody that's going to put up the money if you want to retail it. But retail it, if you don't have $100,000, retailing is not the way to go, right? Retailing is not the way to go. If you don't have $100,000, right? Why don't you start out wholesaling? I could wholesale this house for $120,000. Somebody's going to put in $15,000, maybe $20,000 in repairs. They're going to have $140,000 in it, and it's worth $200,000. They've got $60,000 in equity, or 30%. That's a typical wholesale deal, right, Lance?
That is beautiful. That's exactly. Now I want to go back. I want to shift a little bit. So we've been talking about selling properties on seller financing, Larry.
Right.
And you mentioned up front you're doing someone buying properties. And so I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about that, because we've got a lot of listeners, you know, in my subscriber base that are buying small apartments on seller financing. So if you're trying to buy a property, no matter if it's single family, multifamily, on seller financing, why would a seller sell you a property on seller financing? Let's start there first of all. Why would they even do that?
Sure. There's several reasons, okay? And this really, really, really applies to your listenership, okay? This really applies to your base, right? Well, think about it. If you've got a landlord that owns a fourplex, or 2 quads or something like that, 8 units, whatever, and they've owned them for 20 years, what do you think their basis is in that property, right? They've depreciated it down to where their basis is almost nothing, right, Lance?
That's exactly right.
So if you bought that property for, say, whatever the property is, let's say you paid them $100,000, right? If their basis is now they've depreciated it, and if they know what they're doing, they've done a cost seg, they've taken accelerated depreciation, and they've expensed everything. They've done that thing where you can expense up to $2,500 for any one expense, the IRS that allows you to do. If they've done all that right, in about 15 years, 10 or 15 years, they're going to have zero basis in that property, right? And some people want to sell because they're tired. They're tired landlords. They're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they want to get out of it, right? So they're not going to do a 1031 and move the money into another deal. They just want to cash out and get the cash. So they're going to have to pay taxes on that money, right? So what I sell them on is I say, look, you're a landlord. Your basis, if you've got a good CPA, and I start out by asking them, do you have a pretty good CPA that does all this for? Oh, yeah, everybody's got a good CPA, right? So, well, I'm sure he's probably done you a really good job by helping you with as much expensing as you can and depreciation. So your basis is probably close to zero. If I pay you cash, you're going to have a huge tax bill. How would you like to keep the cash flow without the tax bill and without dealing with tenants, trash, termites, and toilets, right? So you're going to still get the cash flow without having to pay taxes and without having to deal with tenants, right? And the best part is, I know instead of 100, you want 125 for the property. I can give you your 125 for the property, right? Another thing that I do to help me sell them is I always say, well, what are you going to do with the money what are you going to do with all this money when I buy this house from you, right? Well, I'm just going to stick it in the bank. Really? How much is the bank paying? Well, they're paying maybe around 1%. Huh. Well, okay. Well, what if I could get you 5 times that secured by your own property, and you keep your cash flow, and you don't have to pay a big tax bill, and you don't have to deal with tenants? How does that sound? Well, it sounds too good to be true. I tell you what, I'm going to email you or send you some information on it. I want you to run it by your CPA, right? Now, if it's a bigger units like 10, 20, 30 units, whatever, they're going to want to run it by their CPA. But if it's a few single family rental houses, I wouldn't say that, right? I wouldn't say that. But I've had sellers come back to me and say, yeah, my CPA said you were right. You were right. We could do that. So I try to buy, I shouldn't say try. I usually buy 1, maybe 2 of these a month with seller financing, because my whole thing is, if I can't pay them cash, I'm going to offer them their price, but with owner financing.
You know, kudos to you, Larry. That is the best explanation I've heard anyone give other than me on the advantages of seller financing on small apartments. Because you hit it every point right on the head. Is that most of the time it's going to be a 60, 70-year-old person. They're looking to get out and go through the same explanation. And I actually had this conversation not too long ago with a person who said exactly what you said. This sounds too good to be true. Can you really do this? And so, yes, we can really do this. Because they're not, interestingly, they're really not aware of this. And so it's our job to educate them in the process. You're just like Larry did. Beautiful. It's beautiful. All right. So, Larry, you got this. I want to shift gears a little bit here. You got this great business down in the Carolinas. You know, this great stuff. You're helping so many people. And I should have asked this up front. So, you know, for a lot of people right now, maybe just getting started, they're thinking, well, gosh, you know, Larry can do it. I couldn't possibly do this. Relate to people about how you got started in real estate and how, from that start, how it grew into what you're doing right now.
I want to show you something right quick, okay? This is my office, by the way. My guitars, stuff, my education. Look, it's not just me, Lance. This is my training room right here. This is where I train all of my students, right? You see all those squares on the wall? Those are testimonials. Those are testimonials from people that I've helped, that I've worked with, and help them do deals. This guy right here made over $1 million last year. All over the room. So it's not just me. It's not just me. You know this, Lance. Anybody can teach anybody how to do this. The difference is the student has to take the action. They have to take action, and they have to do deals. So many people think, oh, all I got to do is whip out my credit card and buy a course, and I'll start making some money. It doesn't work like that. This course right here will not make you any money if you don't take the action, right? None of these courses, none of my courses or anybody else's will make you any money if you don't get out there and hustle, right?
So that's precisely right. So, but I'm going to come back to something. You know, but I think you've got like 3 or 4 degrees last time I checked, and PhD and a couple of masters. And so you really trained hard to do all this stuff, right, Larry?
Well, you know, I know you're kind of kidding around because I got a South Carolina PhD. That's a public high school diploma, right? You know, never been to college. This is my education right here. All this is my education, but I guarantee you something. I guarantee you I have spent more money on my education than anybody listening to this podcast, probably combined. I still spend about $30,000 to $40,000 a year on my own education. I'm in 2 masterminds alone, just masterminds, right? One of them is $10,000 a year plus $1,000 a month. Another one is $25,000 a year, and I've been in it for 6 years, right? And it's the top of the top. You know what I'm talking about. So it's the top of the top. It's the cream of the crop. And you just got to keep pushing yourself and getting higher and higher and better, right? If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. There is no staying still.
I'm in, brother. I'm in. So I'm going to talk about this. So you started from, like from scratch. You've grown up. It's this successful, fabulous business. So what gets you up in the morning now, and what do you see? What's the vision for Larry Goins and the Larry Goins operation?
That's awesome, man. I'm glad you asked that. We now are working to give back and help other people. We have our show called Brag Radio. It's really done on Facebook Live, but it's Brag Radio, TV, whatever you want to call it. But Brag stands for Be Rich and Generous. And what we try to do is we try to help people to be able to help themselves. Our goal is to teach people how to invest in real estate and have them go out and be a blessing to others. I don't know if when I was out there in the training room you saw, but there was a couple of bicycles out there and there's all kind of other stuff. We found a family that a single mom's got 2 kids, or kids are sleeping on the floor, and she really needs some help. So we're providing them with their Christmas this year, right? A couple of bicycles, some other stuff, and we're giving the kids beds to sleep on because they're sleeping on the floor right now, right? So just little stuff like that. We got a day homeless shelter that we're helping out. There's a kids ministry in the Carolinas here that we're helping out, and there's so many people that need help. And one thing I thought about this morning, I heard about this on the way to work this morning on the radio. They were talking about one of the ministries that we're involved in, one of the children's ministries we're involved in. They do a bike thing every year where they raise a bunch of bicycles. But they were talking about this year is the year for the grandparents. There's so many grandparents raising grandkids now. That got me thinking, man, what can we do for those grandparents? Because I like helping, the elderly people, that are on a fixed income and maybe their house needs some work and they can't fix it up, that sort of thing, and they're stuck, right? They can't move and they can't fix their house, right? So I like helping them, but I also really want to help the kids. So I got to thinking, maybe we should start focusing on grandparents raising grandkids. That's a whole separate ministry right there that you could really focus on, grandparents raising grandkids, because there's grandparents that need the money that are raising grandkids and they don't have the money to take care of them.
Man, that's fabulous, Larry. That is fabulous. You are so right. You are so right. Larry, you're doing great stuff, man. And you helped me, like I talked about up front so many years ago, with a single tip. And I really want to applaud everything you're doing. And for everyone listening, this is the real deal here with Larry Goins. Now, Larry, you've got some free training. You want to help some people out here. Some people get them along the way in their real estate business. So you've been very gracious and an offer you want to make to our subscribers. Can you share what you've got and how they can avail themselves of it?
Absolutely. If you go to LarryGoins.com, wait a minute. I don't think that's it. Here, I'm going to give away a phone number. How about that? Let's do a phone number.
All right.
Right? 877-LARRY-GO. 877-LARRY-GO. G-O. And if you'll call 877-LARRY-GO, toll-free number, Zenobia in my office, who does all of our marketing for our properties, but don't start picking her brain. She's very busy, okay? She also is in our accounting department as well. We have 2 people in accounting. So Zenobia, Z, we call her Z, she will answer the phone and she'll get your information and send you out an investor's kit. In this investor's kit, we're going to give you a copy of our HUD Homes Half Off book, our Getting Started in Real Estate Day Trading book, as well as several videos. We've got a video about the Filthy Riches model, the owner financing model, and about the wholesaling. as well as about using your self-directed retirement account to invest in real estate. So a lot of good information there. Just call 877-LARRY-GO and Z will hook you up.
Oh, fabulous. That's very fabulous. Everyone take advantage of this offer. And I'll make sure I'll put it on the show notes as well. But 877-LARRY-GO, G-O, 877-LARRY-GO. We'll have these on the show notes. And Larry, man, you're doing fabulous. I can't thank you so much what you've done for our business from that one tip. And everything you're doing in your real estate is just, I think it's so great. And you're helping so many people. So congratulations on that. And thank you for everything you did for my subscribers today.
Awesome, man. I really, really appreciate you having me on. I hope everybody got a lot out of it, got a lot of good information. But remember, you can't just stop here. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep pushing. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he said, stay curious. Stay curious. Keep seeking more information, but you also have to take massive action, right? Just reading books, listening to podcasts, and getting home study courses and going to seminars is not going to help you. You've got to take action, and you got to take massive action. It's like taking off at a plane. You got to put it to the bottom to get off the ground, and then you can back off a little bit.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right,
Awesome.
So everyone, that's Mr. Larry Goins. He is the man. And now for the showcase note, for the show notes, make sure you go to and get to remember 877-LARRY-GO. For the show notes, you go to www.greenlightreinvesting.com, greenlightreinvesting.com. We'll have the recordings of this and the show notes, and you get other great free training resources there as well. Until the next session, everyone, have a great, successful real estate lifestyle. This is Lance Edwards. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Expert with Lance Edwards. Let us now blatantly and shamelessly bribe you toward creating your own real estate lifestyle by offering you a whole bunch of free stuff. Go to greenlightreinvesting.com and get you some free stuff and this session's show notes.